All right. Thank you very much, Marina. All right. So good afternoon and welcome, everybody. My name is Chris Ryan. I'm a financial advisor with TFS Wealth Management. In this presentation, as I stated before, we'll start by taking a look at some general financial planning concerns that impact both small business owners and the self-employed. And then we'll speak to the options both groups have as it relates to retirement. So the reason I'm looking forward to this conversation is to hopefully provide an idea or two to a few of you in the audience. It is very common that in my day-to-day in our practice that we speak with business owners and self-employed people that work for small businesses, and they don't have an insight to what their options are as it relates to financial planning and retirement planning. Structuring a retirement plan through their business not only helps retain employees, but also offers the business owner significant tax advantages and the ability to put away much more retirement savings than the IRA limits for both traditional and Roth IRA. While there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all financial plan, this overview should help with you thinking about your own specific needs. And like I said, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to stop me and we could answer those. So as a business owner, you have a lot on your plate. You must effectively run your company, manage your expenses, understand your industry or niche market, manage employees if you have any, and market to your customers. So one of the first steps as we think about financial planning is setting goals. So when you set goals, you're defining your dreams for the future. Some of your goals may be things that you want to do in the not so distant future, like pay off debt or buy a new car. Other goals might be more distant. Do you want to buy or build a new home? Do you want to grow your business, pay for college for your grandchildren or children, or retire early? Your goals are the foundation of your financial plan because you need to know what you want to accomplish before you can begin saving or investing. Once you identified and prioritized your financial goals, you can develop a clear-cut savings or investment strategy that can help you turn your dreams into reality. So making your goals as concrete as possible will help you focus on what's really important. A goal that's well-defined will be easier to visualize and easier to stick with. To set clear-cut goals, you can use this technique. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, attainable, and timely. So just to dive into a little bit about each one of these. So a goal that's specific is one that's clearly defined and described in great detail. Precisely what do you want to accomplish? I want to save for my child's college education. That's not a specific goal, but rather I want to save the cost of 4 years at X university by the time my daughter turns 17 is clearly defined. So that's what we're talking about as it relates to specific. With a goal that's measurable, you should be able to track your progress and clearly know when you've reached it. For example, I want to retire early is not a measurable goal, but I want to retire by my 55th birthday is a goal that has a definite endpoint. 3, an attainable goal is realistic and reachable. Goals can be challenging, but you should have a fair chance of achieving them. I want to save $1 million in 5 years might not be the most attainable goal for many people, but I want to save $1 million in 30 years may well be an attainable goal for yourself. A relevant goal is one that makes sense to you and reflects your specific needs and values. Goals that are relevant are goals that you will be excited about because they will be important to you. For example, I want to save $25,000 for a down payment so I can own my own home is an example of a goal that might be relevant to you. And lastly, you must be able to set a time frame or deadline for reaching your goal. I want to pay off credit card debt by the end of next year is a goal that has a clear deadline. Writing down and prioritizing your goals is an essential first step towards putting any financial plan into action for yourself and your business. 89% of all businesses in the United States are small businesses. And with small businesses, there's many unexpected expenses that come up, especially for those of you who are self-employed. So what I wanted to talk about was an emergency fund. So an emergency fund is the foundation for any successful financial plan. Without money to fall back on when unexpected expenses crop up, you may be forced to tap into savings that you've earmarked for retirement, college, or another savings goal. But if you have an emergency fund, it will be easier to handle job loss, temporary disability, or other event that might prevent you from saving for the future or even tempt you to pile up debt. How much should you have in your emergency fund? Popular rule of thumb that you see in financial media out there is that you should have an emergency fund equal to 3 to 6 months of your living expenses. But should you have 3, 4, 5, 6, or more worth of your expenses? The amount totally depends on what you want to achieve, your goals, and what other factors may be at play, such as how stable is your business? Do you work in an industry affected by economic uncertainty? Do you have adequate health and disability insurance? Do you have other assets that you could tap into without penalty in an emergency? Where you keep your emergency fund is also important. In a jar is probably not the best idea. You want to keep your money in an account where it's readily available, but you'll also want to receive as high as return as possible. Rarely do you write one check equal to 6 months or even 3 months worth of expenses. So you may only need part of the fund in something as liquid as a savings or checking account. The balance of the emergency fund can be held in something getting a better return, but that you could still access in a day or two. In today's high yield interest rate environment, both high yield savings and money markets are generating higher yields than we saw a year or even 2 years ago, sometimes as high as 3.5 or a little over 4%, depending on where you're looking. So another part of financial planning is identifying and managing the potential risks that can impact your finances. The value of insurance is that it's a cost-effective way to mitigate or share the frequently overwhelming costs of various risks. Let's spend a few moments looking at the types of risk you might want to insure against. So what used to be called health insurance has actually been replaced by healthcare plans. Most plans provide basic coverage for common medical expenses, such as doctor's visits, preventative care, diagnostic tests, hospital and extended care, emergency services, and prescription drugs. Next is auto insurance. Auto insurance has two main components: liability and insurance for property damage. Liability insurance provides compensations to persons who would be able to sue you for personal injuries, medical payments, loss of earnings, or damages to the property. Property damage insurance includes collision and comprehensive coverage, which compensate you for damage to your car caused by another automobile or things such as fire, theft, and vandalism. Next is life insurance. Life insurance offers income replacement to your survivors. It can provide an income tax-free death benefit and can be used to pay for funeral expenses and even medical expenses of a last illness. The cost and availability of life insurance depend on factors such as age, health, and the type and amount of insurance purchased. For some of us, our most valuable asset is our home. The most common type of homeowners policy in use today covers a variety of risks that can cause damage to your home and personal property, medical payments for injuries to occupants, and if persons injured by accident while in your home, and loss or theft of personal property. Next is liability insurance. Liability insurance is often your last line of defense against potentially devastating claims for things over which you may have little or no control. It's often called umbrella insurance because it's carried over other liability insurance and usually adds $1 million or more in extra coverage to your homeowners and automobile liability policies. Coverage is provided for you, your spouse, and any relatives living in your household and insured by your primary policies. What happens if you couldn't work for an extended period of time because of injury or illness? How would you replace your earnings? Who would contribute to your retirement savings account or educational funds? Disability income insurance benefits can be used to help preserve your independence, maintain your lifestyle, and give you time to recover and provide a chance to retrain for another job if necessary and conserve your assets and savings for you and your family. A complete statement of coverage, including exclusions, exceptions, and limitations, can only be found in the disability income insurance policy itself. It should be also noted that carriers have the discretion to raise their rates and remove their products from the marketplace. And lastly, as it relates to insurance, long-term care. Private insurance that pays benefits if you needed extended care, such as nursing home care. Like other types of insurance, long-term care insurance helps protect you against specific financial risk. In this case, the chance that the need for long-term care will wipe out your life savings. A complete statement of coverage, including exclusions, exceptions, is only found in your respective policy. It should be noted that carriers have the discretion to raise their prices and remove their products from the marketplace. Next, let's talk about investing and the potential for accumulating wealth. So do you associate investing with speculating or gambling? Do you think of it as betting on what the stock market will do, or trying to time the market in order to make a quick profit? Or do you think of investing as more of a long-term methodical saving effort to build for the future? Well, I'm here to say it's a little bit of each. Investing involves taking a certain amount of risk, and it also involves the desire to multiply your money over time. Done properly, investing is a carefully planned and prepared approach to managing your money, with the goal of accumulating the funds you need, and planning your investment strategy is about discipline and patience. All investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal, and there's no guarantee that any investment strategy will be successful. When it comes to investing, there's a direct relationship between risk and return. That is, in general, as the potential for return increases, so does the level of risk. Or stated another way, the less risk an investment has, the lower the potential for return. The investment plan that's appropriate for you depends largely upon your comfort with risk, what's known as your risk tolerance. You can completely avoid risk when it comes to investing. You cannot completely avoid risk when it comes to investing, but it's possible to manage that risk. There are two key questions to determine your risk tolerance. First, how comfortable are you personally with risk? This is a subjective measure, and it depends on many factors, including your goals, as we discussed earlier, your life stage, your personality, and your investment experience. Some investors are comfortable with a high degree of risk. Others can't tolerate very much at all. And a lot of people fall somewhere in between. The second question is, how well is your investment plan set up to handle potential losses? The more resilient your overall plan is when faced with any potential losses, the more risk it might be able to take on. For example, time can be a powerful ally. The longer you're going to be invested, the more flexibility your investment plan might have to survive setbacks along the way. So there are several key terms you'll need to understand when planning your investments. These three words are probably familiar, but they all have very specific meanings when it comes to investing. So we all know we want our money to grow, right? When it comes to investing, growth means that an investment has the potential to grow in value. If that happens, you might be able to sell it for more than you paid for it. Next is income. Income comes from regular payments of money. Interest on a savings account is income. So is interest on a certificate of deposit or a CD, interest paid by a bond, and dividends paid by a stock. Lastly, stability. Stability, the third potential objective of an investment, refers to protecting your principal. An investment that focuses on stability concentrates less on increasing the value of that investment and more on trying to ensure that it doesn't lose value. As much as we like to, we can't have it all. There's a relationship between growth, income, and the stability of our investments. The more important one of those areas become, the more you have to trade off in terms of the other two. The key is to tailor your investments according to what you want them to do for you, and to balance stability, income, and growth so that you could potentially enhance your overall returns at a level of risk that you're comfortable with. So next, I want to talk a little bit about retirement. So before you can start planning for retirement, you need to ask yourself three basic questions. What kind of retirement do I want to plan for? When do I want to retire? And how long will that retirement last? So close your eyes for a second and picture your own retirement. Whether you see yourself on a golf course, a yacht, a hammock, or simply in your own living room, most of you probably imagine some degree of financial independence. To a large extent, maintaining financial independence in retirement depends on the lifestyle you want. And have you thought about when you like to retire? It's important because the earlier you retire, the shorter the period of time you have to accumulate funds and the longer the period of time of those dollars will need to last. Although you can retire anytime, most people wait until they're eligible for Social Security retirement benefits. And you can't start receiving Social Security benefits until age 62. And the earliest you could receive full Social Security retirement is age 66 to 67, depending on the year you're born. Also, you're not eligible for Medicare health coverage until age 65. So if you want to retire before then, you'll have to plan for private health insurance. As discussed, the earlier you retire, the longer the period of time your funds will need to last. But how should you plan on your retirement lasting? Keep in mind that the life expectancy has increased at a steady pace over the years and is expected to continue increasing. The point I'm trying to make is that for many of us, it's not unreasonable to plan for a retirement that lasts 25 or more years. So before we talk about some specific investment vehicles, let's first mention important tax considerations. So pre-tax dollars are funds that are taken from your pay before certain taxes on your pay are calculated. For example, your federal income tax. Your taxes are then calculated on your remaining pay, and this creates a tax savings for you. For example, if you are in a flat 22% tax bracket and you're allowed to buy a $100 commuter pass with pre-tax dollars, the pass really only costs $78 in after-tax or take-home dollars. The result can be a lower out-of-pocket expense for you. Some opportunities where you might cover expenses with pre-tax dollars might include paying your health insurance, disability insurance, dental insurance, and vision insurance premiums. As an employer, you may offer a retirement plan like a safe harbor 401k, a simple IRA, a SEP IRA, or a solo 401k. What these plans have in common is that they allow you to elect to contribute a percentage of your earnings on a pre-tax basis. These plans are intended to be used to save for retirement, and they offer advantages that go well beyond the fact that you get to fund them with pre-tax dollars, as we'll discuss later. Another important tax consideration is that some specific investment vehicles allow you for tax-deferred growth. Whether you're investing pre-tax or after-tax dollars, tax-deferred growth basically means that you won't owe any taxes on the growth of that investment until you withdraw funds from the account. And in certain cases, qualified withdrawals from these investment vehicles may be tax-free. Some examples of investment vehicles that qualify for tax-deferred growth are 529 college savings plans and prepaid tuition plans. A 529 plan is funded with after-tax dollars. Your investment grows tax-deferred until you withdraw the funds. At that time, if the funds are used for qualified educational expenses, the funds may be withdrawn tax-free. Both traditional and Roth IRAs also allow tax-deferred growth. In the case of traditional IRAs, your contributions are made with after-tax dollars, but they may, if you qualify, be tax-deductible on your federal income tax return. This is important because tax-deductible contributions lower your taxable income for the year, saving you money, and you're able to put away for retirement. Funds in a traditional IRA are sheltered from federal income tax until withdrawn. As for Roth IRAs, if you qualify on the basis of your income to contribute to one, your contributions are made with after-tax dollars and aren't tax deductible. But the good news is, if you meet certain conditions, your withdrawal from a Roth IRA, including any investment earnings, will be completely free from federal income tax. So let's illustrate the value of this tax deferral. Let's assume you have $20,000 to invest. You put $10,000 into a taxable account that earns $6,000 per year and use a portion of these assets each year to pay taxes attributable the account's earnings. You put the other $10,000 into a tax deferred account that also earns $6% per year. Assuming that a tax rate of 24% applies, in 30 years, your taxable account will be worth $38,104. In the same amount of time, your tax deferred account will have $57,435 as seen in the green line. Of course, the funds in the tax deferred account might be subject to federal income tax when withdrawn, but even if you took the entire amount in the tax deferred account as a lump sum distribution after 30 years and paid tax on the full amount, you would still come out ahead. In this example, at a tax rate of 24%, you'd end up with $43,651. So you still wind up ahead. Again, a note of caution, depending on the specific tax deferral vehicle, an additional 10% tax penalty could apply if you took distributions before a certain age for a non-qualified purpose. For traditional and Roth IRAs, that age currently is 59.5. Additionally, this illustration assumes that fixed annual rate of return of 6% over that 30-year period. In real life, the return of a portfolio will vary over time according to market conditions. Even if you feel too far away from retirement to start thinking about it, it's important that you start planning now. Many people assume that they could hold off saving for retirement and make up the difference later, but this can be a very costly mistake. The further off your investment is, the more time your investments have the potential to grow. Waiting too long can make it very difficult to catch up, and only a few years can make a big difference in how much you'll be able to accumulate. For example, if you invest $3,000 every year starting when you're 20 years old, and if you retire after age 65, you will have accumulated almost $680,000, assuming a 6% annual growth rate and no tax. But if you wait till age 35 and start saving $3,000 annually, you'll accumulate about $254,000. And if you wait until age 45 to start saving, you'll accumulate about $120,000 by the time you retire. This doesn't mean that there's no hope if you're 50 years old and haven't set aside anything for retirement yet. It makes it all more important that you implement a plan today. Of course, this is an illustration. So the good news is that you may live a very long time. The challenge is making sure your retirement assets last as long as you do. So based on life expectancy statistics, a retired 65-year-old man in average health has a 34% chance of living to age 90, and a 65-year-old woman in average health has a 45% chance of living to age 90. For a couple, the odds are even more striking. One member of a couple has a 63% chance of living to age 90 and a 34% chance of living to age 95. How confident are you that you'll be able to live comfortably at age 90 or 95? Your retirement income strategy should include the possibility of a long life. Let's talk about inflation. So inflation is the rise in consumer prices and the loss of purchasing power over time. It has an effect on everything, from the cost of a bag of groceries to a car to a home. Inflation was relatively low over the past decade, averaging 2.6% from 2013 to 2022, but was especially challenging in 2021 and 2022, rising 7% and 6.5% respectively, the largest annual increases seen since 1982. Whether you realize it or not, you could be battling inflation throughout your working years. Yet it could be even harder to deal with in retirement when you're on a fixed income. Consider these two hypothetical examples that illustrate the effects of 3% annual inflation over a 30-year period. A bag of groceries costing $50 today would cost $121 for an equivalent purchase in 30 years. That's 2.4 times more than right now. A $1 million retirement portfolio would have purchasing power of about $412,000 in 30 years. That's why it's essential for your retirement portfolio to keep pace with and ideally exceed inflation to avoid losing purchasing power as the years go by. Of course, longevity and inflation aren't the only factors to consider. So that brings us to another risk. Another risk you will face is the unpredictable of financial markets. Market conditions can change, often unexpectedly and sometimes dramatically. Generally, it's a case of a when and not if it happens. And if it happens when you're about to retire or you're drawing down your retirement investments for income, it can be unsettling to say the least. Consider these outcomes, which show the cumulative returns of the S&P 500 Composite Index over 3 different 5-year periods. The first, 1998 to 2002, the second, 2008 to 2012, and 2018 to 2022. As you can see, these 3 time periods produce vastly different results. Although the cumulative return for 2 of these 5-year periods was positive, the 5-year period from 1998 to 2002 had a negative 2.9% cumulative return. Keep in mind that market performance data is always backward looking. Whether the markets perform well or poorly in future years is a big unknown. So before you make any decision about tapping into your retirement assets, it might help to see how several factors can influence a portfolio's staying power. These factors include the original value of the portfolio, inflation, investment returns, tax returns, and the annual withdrawal amounts. This simplified example compares 2 tax-deferred portfolios earning different rates of return to show how long $500,000 might last in retirement. It assumes $50,000 annual withdrawals, which would provide an after-tax income of $30,000 to $35,000 for a typical person, adjusted for 3% annual inflation. The $500,000 account earning a 4% annual rate of return will last almost 11 years. The $500,000 account earning an 8% annual return would last more than 14 years. As you can see, a higher return has a huge impact on how long retirement funds will last. This is easy to change on a worksheet to get the numbers you want, but it's impossible to predict future performance with precision. And unrealistic expectations may come back to haunt you later if you burn through your savings much faster than anticipated. Think of this in the context of how long you could expect to live, and you'll see how important it can be to make sure that your money lasts throughout your lifetime. Next, I want to talk about the 4% rule. This 4% rule has been around since the 1990s. The premise is that if you withdraw 4% of your account value in the first year of retirement and adjust the amount each year for inflation to meet the rising cost of living, your assets could last about 30 years. Some analysts think 4% is too high, where others think it might be too low. In either case, it's a reasonable starting point. The original 4% was based on a tax-deferred portfolio, invested 50% in stocks and 50% in bonds, and the rate of return was based on historical market performance, which of course is not guaranteed in the future. It is assumed that the account will be completely liquidated after 30 years, so nothing will be left to the heirs. The slide shows how a consistent withdrawal strategy similar to the 4% might look in action, compared with higher 6 and 8% withdrawal rates. Shows how long $1 million might last if you begin with the first year withdrawals indicated, 40, 60, or 80,000, and raise withdrawals to each year by 3% to adjust for inflation. It assumes a consistent 5% annual rate of return, which of course cannot be guaranteed. So the 8% lasts around 15 years, the 6% lasts a little over 20 years, and the 40% lasts a little over 35 years. As you can see, your withdrawal rate really has an impact on your retirement planning. So the last thing I wanted to talk about as it relates to retirement planning is the 3-tiered withdrawal strategy offers a way to help even out the sequence of return risk. You would divide your portfolio into 3 tiers. For the short term, tier 1, you estimate how much you might need to live on over the next 2 to 3 years and invest that money in conservative assets such as cash and cash alternatives. For your money, you would need over the medium term, tier 2, from 3 to 10 years, you would invest primarily in fixed income vehicles that offer the potential for moderate returns, but also come with some price volatility. You might also consider some stocks in this tier. For your money that you wouldn't need for a decade or more, tier 3, you might invest in more aggressive investments to provide future growth potential. Throughout your retirement, you would periodically shift the assets from long and medium term tiers downward to provide for your short-term needs. The advantage of this approach is that it divides a long-term strategy into manageable steps, offering a way to balance both the current income and future growth needs. The disadvantage is that it requires active portfolio management, depends on market performance, and may be challenging to coordinate using multiple retirement accounts with different tax considerations. So what I wanted to speak about next is some of the retirement plan services for people that are self-employed and own a small business. So if I share my screen, here is some literature from our partners at American Funds. Just to go through some stats, 34% of small business owners have not saved anything for retirement. 47% of small business employees do not have access to a retirement plan that helps themselves prepare for the future. So common questions that are out there as it relates to starting a retirement plan is, do I have enough employees? There are plans for businesses of every size, whether the business is just yourself or if you have a fair amount of employees. The next question we get is, aren't these plans expensive to offer? So there's a number of retirement solutions out there that are more affordable than you might think, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. Small businesses may also qualify for federal tax credits as further incentive to establish a retirement plan. Through the Secure Act 1.0 and Secure Act 2.0, there are federal tax credits for setting up these retirement plans for businesses. Another key concern is, what if I can't afford to contribute to my employees' accounts? Not all small business retirement plans require the employer to contribute money. For those that do, your contributions are tax deductible. Fourth concern is around the economy. A lot of these plans offer flexibility in how you run it. You may be able to adjust the employer contributions, if any, according to your circumstances and profitability. In some cases, you may be able to continue contributions at any time. And then a lot of people worry about the logistics of, isn't it complicated to set up and maintain? Today's small business plans are relatively easy to set up and operate. Many have no internal IRS reporting requirements, so you can focus on running the business. So as an employer, a company retirement plan may help you save for your own retirement, receive tax credits and other incentives, attract and keep better employees, realize increased worker productivity, and deduct all the employer contributions from your current taxes. Your employees and yourself may benefit because they can invest for the future, put away more money for retirement through these small business plans, realize tax deferred growth, and be more content and motivated with a benefits package, and take advantage of the knowledge and expertise of financial professionals associated with that plan. So here's a flow chart, as we talk about the specific types of retirement plans for 1099 employees and small business owners. So this, if we just go down the flow chart, do you have employees? If the answer to that is yes, you as the business owner, are you willing to contribute to your employees' accounts? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, you look at the next question. Are both employer and employee willing to make contributions? And only if the employer can contribute to employee accounts. So if we go with both the employer and the employee can make contributions, you have to decide as a business owner, which is more important to you, higher contribution limits or plan design flexibility, or lower plan costs and easier administration. So if you want to contribute higher amounts, a safe harbor 401k or a solo 401k, if it's just you in the business, can make more sense. But if you like lower planning costs and easier administration, a simple IRA can make sense. So this flow chart continues to go on, but we won't go into those details. So as it relates to the benefits of a 401k plan, both the solo and a safe harbor 401k, the employer participants can contribute to their own accounts. Employer contributions, if any, are deductible as business expenses. It's flexible in the sense that the program designs to suit the employer needs. There's an annual non-discrimination testing is not required for some safe harbor plans. For participants, there's high contribution limits and loans can be available. For a simple IRA, the advantages of going that route are, for the employer, it's low cost. The employees can contribute to their own accounts. The employer match is tax deductible. There's an easy setup and administration, and there's no complex IRS reporting requirements. For participants, the contribution limits are higher than those of traditional and Roth IRAs. And the employer makes contribution to each participant's account, and there's an immediate vesting schedule within those plans. And lastly, what are the advantages of a SEP IRA? To the employer, they're low cost. The employer contributions are deductible business expenses. There's flexible contribution limits. Annual contributions are not required. Easy setup and administration, minimum paperwork, the ability to discontinue the plan at any time, and limited fiduciary responsibility on the employer's end. And for participants, employer contributes to each participant's account, and there's immediate vesting. So with all of these plans, I wanted to highlight, a lot of times we have people come to us that are either 1099 employees or small business owners asking what their options are. There's not enough information out there for what are the options. So all of those plans are designed to reduce your business's taxable income, your own personal income, and help you save more than the traditional and Roth IRAs that are out there. The 2023, if your contribution limit for a Roth or traditional IRA is $6,500, but with some of those plans that I just mentioned, the limits can be much higher. It's dependent on your income and things like that. And each plan has different limits, which we could talk about further. But Marina, that was all I wanted to cover today. Is there any questions?
Yes, I was